What up?
What up? How's
Yeah.
everybody doing out there?
Doing
Me
good
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Hey, if you don't know Zach Hoffman of SWALeadership, you should.
And they're gonna.
Yes,
Yes,
they are
right
now, right
now.
here.
Exactly.
Zach, what's up? How you doing, man?
What's up? I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Definitely,
Absolutely.
not a problem. Hey, so you're in Europe. We just don't know where at in Europe.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm currently in Salzburg, Austria, if you know where that is.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty central Europe. It's I don't know if you know of Red Bull. Red Bull's based here, so I'm sure you guys have drank Red Bull in your life before. This is Mozart. If you're into classical music, Mozart was born here. Fun fact. But that's where I currently am based and where I've been living for past 2 years now.
Okay.
Wow, that is awesome. Beautiful country. Absolutely beautiful. A lot of skiing.
Absolutely. I've never tried it though. That's something I have to get on though. I have never tried
it
skiing.
in that poor snow. Let me tell you. Oh, I feel bad for it still to this day. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about SWALeadership. Okay. What inspired you to, bring SWALeadership around?
That's a great question. SWALeadership was kind of I guess you could say, a compilation of everything I've learned throughout my time in Europe as a professional American football player. So essentially I came to Europe in 2012, and long story short, I've been here ever since. I've lived in 6 different countries. Obviously, you learn about cultural differences and such things like that. And, playing the quarterback position as a football player, it's a position of leadership. And so leadership development is kind of always something I've been passionate about. And I just kind of took that leadership development aspect and this SWALeadership concept, which I built, and kind of based leadership in a globalized setting, I guess you could say. Nice. And not just leadership, effective leadership. And this concept is basically, a culmination of my experiences, on the various teams in the various countries I've been, and what helped me earn the respect of my peers, depending on, what culture I was in, because it's different. People are different, especially in Europe. That's what's amazing to me, especially about the United States. You cross a border into another state, you essentially have, you have the same language. Of course, you have different foods and cultures a little bit, but in Europe, it's totally different. You cross a border and it's a new language, new holidays, new culture, everything. And it just was a fascinating thing for me to learn. And that's kind of how SWAL was born, just through that international, intercultural competence.
Okay.
That is awesome.
And so you said you went to Europe to play football, American football
in
Europe. I want to just backtrack that a little before we get into the leadership and SWAL. Like, what was that about? How did that come about? What was the draw or your interest to that? And where did you start there?
Yeah, that's another interesting story. To be honest with you, when I grew up in America in a small rural town in Western Pennsylvania. I grew up playing sports, and I really was taken to football. I loved it. And ever since I was young, I wanted to go to the NFL. Obviously that didn't happen. And I would say kind of football in Europe and playing in Europe kind of happened by accident. And that's what's pretty amazing, is because I honestly had no idea football in Europe existed my whole childhood, even to my, college days.
Right.
Yeah. And so what happened was, I was in college, I was playing at a small school. And I kind of had a moment when I realized that, hey, your dream of going to the NFL, it's just not going to happen. No 5'9" Division III quarterbacks go to the NFL. It just doesn't happen. And that kind of was like a realization for me. And I knew that, obviously I was devastated, but I also knew that I had to make a drastic change in my life, because up until that point, I identified myself as a football player. And I knew that, being the NFL player that I wanted was not going to happen. It kind of hit me all at once. So I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have to make a drastic decision. So I decided to drop out of school, move back home with my mom. I went to community college, started working a construction job, did that for about a week. And then I said, well, definitely don't want to do this my whole life. So it kind of made me really think, all right, what am I going to do here? And kind of just out of, randomness, my mom at the time was working a job where she would help foreign exchange students from Europe come to the United States to study for, a couple semesters. And she had mentioned to me that she was going to Portugal for a trip. And I was, kind of struck my interest. So I started doing some Google research, and I found that there was a website where, American football players in the States who haven't made it to the NFL or a high level professional level in the States, they could upload their highlights and profile for European teams to take a look at them. So that's what I did. It was free. I created a profile, uploaded a highlight tape, and I said, whatever. I didn't think much of it. Little to be known, about 3-4 days later, I had an offer to go to Poland. And obviously, I received some backlash from my parents because, they thought it was a scam or something. And to be honest, I was skeptical too. But I did my research and I found out that it was legit. And I knew that I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that this was the drastic change I was looking for. I knew that I had to rediscover myself, and that going to Europe and doing something new would help me grow and would be the best way for me to do that.
Well, so right into that, because now we're talking about a drastic change for you. Is that a big key component of that moment of your just realizing that there had to be a change? That's got to be a part of your leadership program. Like people taking a step, being willing to go outside of their box, right? Mm-hmm. That's got to be a major component of what you're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if I wouldn't have made that step, I wouldn't have been where I am today. I would have probably finished school, did pretty well. I'd probably be doing well for myself, but I would have never reached the fulfillment that I had always been looking for. And the only reason I achieved that was, like you just said, stepping out of my comfort zone. And I'm a full believer of that. And I wasn't at first, but those of us who want to achieve our potential, there's no other way to do it. If you're not willing to be in uncomfortable situations and step out of your comfort of the life you have, you're never going to reach your true potential. And that's not even a bad thing. It's okay to be comfortable. A lot of people, I get it. They have families to take care of. They can't step out all the time. But it comes down to, in the end, we all know truly, I believe, we all know true deep inside, no matter how much money we have, no matter how much success we have, how fulfilled we truly are with ourselves and our lives. And those of us who achieve great things are the ones who are willing to take risks and step out. And so, like you just said, that's totally a part of my concept, because that's a huge part of my story.
And for some folks, it's sometimes the opportunity's there, but they just don't know it yet until they, take that step out of that box, and boom, there's the opportunity for them that they've made themselves.
And I actually, when I started playing poker, let's just use that as a great example, because this is one of the things that really gets me is I was sitting there and I was afraid to play unless I had good cards. And a guy turned to me one night and he's like, you can't win unless you play.
Truth.
So by not betting and not bluffing and not being a part of willing to let the cards fall as they may be, and I wasn't playing, and I became a better poker player because I started to understand it that way. Relating back to you had to learn by going over there. That was a big deal. There was a big thing that you faced challenges, but you played. It wasn't about playing the game as much as it was you actually played. You put yourself in a position to win. So what challenges did you have living in the other countries and different languages that you faced that also helped build what you're trying to teach back to everybody right now?
Yes. So the language was definitely a problem at first. What's good is, everyone kind of has a general understanding of English. But I will say this, especially when I was in Poland and where I was there for a short time, so I didn't have a chance to learn the language well. What I had to use more than anything was body language, and kind of being a leader in that form, and my tone of voice rather than what I was saying. So I really learned how key body language and posture and tone can really earn the respect of people, even if they don't understand what you're saying. If you just portray that kind of aura, I guess you could say, of confidence. Because that's something I would say I lacked before going to Europe, because I never had the problem of people not understanding what I was trying to say. Being in the States, we all speak English, Spanish now too, a lot of people, but I never had that problem until I, went to Europe. I really realized, how to communicate with people who don't speak the same language as you. And oftentimes I realized too, and this is actually, it's been talked about a lot too. People's personalities are different when they're speaking a foreign language. So I knew that those guys who were talking to me in English, while I could understand them and I kind of had an idea of who they were and who they are, it wasn't the full them, because they couldn't really express themselves in the way that they would in their own language. And that's definitely a challenge that not only that I face, but I think people face, everywhere today in our society that's been globalized. It's business, everything. So I just believe it's so important to observe. And that's kind of another thing that I learned, is how to observe people, observe their reactions to my actions, what I did, observe their reactions and things that I said, the tone of voice I used, kind of observing their expressions and kind of like getting a gauge to how to, proceed with the situation. I guess you can call it people skills, but it was intensified even more as I was there. I feel like that's something that, I'm still learning now as I'm living in Europe. It's an everyday thing, but I feel like it helps you so much, and it makes you so much aware to your surroundings and the people around you. Because if you're in a leadership role, you're going to have to earn the respect of the people you're leading before you can even, to lead them in the first place. And I believe that's how you earn the respect. You try to indulge yourself in their culture and in their world and understand where they're coming from. And when you truly do that, they see that, they realize that you're making the effort, and you're going to earn their respect.
So I have family in Italy, and when we would go back there, I spoke it horribly, but they appreciated that you would try to speak the language, and then they'd sit there and have perfect English, and you get a good chuckle out of it with them. So I totally respect that. Now, I want to take the respect aspect of this and talk about legacy. Your book, Leaving a Legacy. I see where you're coming from, and I love it. I want to know how others can apply it to their regular life.
Yeah.
What do we got?
Yeah, that's a good thing. Good question. When I heard legacy, the first thing I thought of was, a tremendous athlete, for example, Tom Brady, Babe Ruth, those iconic figures who accomplished a lot in their sport or their field. However, what I define as legacy, as I kind of gained experience over here, is legacy is what you leave behind that others can carry on. And what I mean by that is, for example, and this is always, we all know this, we're all on this world for a short amount of time, and we're all going to be gone from it. And it doesn't matter how much money we make, what we accomplish, what people are going to remember from us, and what our legacy will be is how we treated them. What kind of skills did we use that inspired them to then, fulfill their own potential? And so I believe legacy is, obviously, before you can lead others, you have to lead yourself in your own life. I'm a big believer of that. So obviously focusing on yourself and your own development, but then using those skills and applying it to those around you. And when you do that, and if they respect you, they're going to then want to carry that on to the people that they meet. And it's essentially like, what I like to say it is, paying it forward. And that's a big thing that, it's a saying. I know people talk about it a lot, but at the end of the day, your legacy is going to be, how much people respected you as a leader or a follower or a person in general, and what they're going to remember you by. And if they can remember you in a way that inspires them, then they're going to again see that, hey, there's something different about this guy or this girl. There's something different about them. I don't know what it is, but I want it too. And they're going to go digging deeper into you, and they're going to want to listen to you and follow you. So legacy is, for me, is sort of a domino effect. It's how you carry yourself first and foremost, how you lead yourself, and then how do you use those traits, that self-development, to carry on to the next generation of leaders. And I believe, and unfortunately, this is just human nature, we're so focused on the short term. And in this world, we all want short-term results, everything quick. We want to make fast dollars, everything quick. But unfortunately, a lot of people get lost in the shuffle. People who may have potential to do great things get kind of pushed to the side because maybe they're not ready at the time. And that's for me, it's the biggest travesties. There's so many people who maybe develop later in life, but they don't get the opportunity because of our short-minded society. And that's something I try to really help people realize, because it was for me the same way. You know, I feel like, you know, me growing up and being an athlete, you know, I felt like I always had potential, but I just needed maybe more time than others to achieve that. However, you know how, like I just said, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately, most of the time. And so for me, leaving a legacy is just, I want people, when I'm gone from this earth, I don't want them to say, oh, Zach accomplished a lot. I want them to say, you know what, Zach inspired me to reach my true potential.
Yeah,
I love it.
You know, that there's a great quote, you know, Maya Angelou, who said, it's not what you say or do, but it's how you make someone feel. Right. And so you're reading right into that quote, right? I'm going to throw an audible.
Here it comes.
Let's do it.
I want to actually go deeper with you really quick.
Okay.
All those things that you talked about, how you actually helped somebody else want to, which is exactly what you're doing. You're trying to get other people to step up and do amazing things on their own through what you've led them to do. Tell me one of your favorite stories where you feel like you actually helped accomplish that.
Yes, that's a great one. That I have it immediately.
Oh, good.
I remember
Right
I was coaching. I was a young coach at the time. I was about 23 years old. I was still playing, and I was a young coach. I was coaching under, I think, 19. So, you know, young kids. They weren't too much younger than me, though. In Italy, and in Naples, Italy. Yeah. And, and, you know, I had to learn really quick that, you know, I had to adjust my coaching strategy, because I was still kind of in the mindset of a player as I was coaching these kids. And so I was kind of, you know, the hardcore, you know, do push-ups if you do this wrong or whatever. And I quickly realized that, you know, with kids from Southern Italy, that's not a good strategy, and it doesn't work because they're laid back. They're not used to that. They want to have fun. And that's something that I kind of had to develop into. But that being said, there's a story about a player of mine. He was my most talented player at the time on the team. He was my quarterback, and, you know, he was young. You know, he wanted to do other stuff. He wanted to just show up to the games and play. Didn't want to come to practice. And, you know, I was trying to get across to him that, hey, you know, if you're the quarterback, you have to be here. You have to become a leader. You have to be at every practice. And, you know, he still didn't want to kind of follow through with that. And so I was put in a position where I had to essentially bench him. And
oh, wow, that's hard.
That being said, after benching him, I eventually had to just kick him off the team, because his ego was getting in the way of the betterment of the other guys, because they looked up to him just because of his skill. They looked up to him, but he was not encouraging them how I wanted. So I had to kick him off. It was a tough decision because he was our best player. Man. That being said, you know, I still maintained contact with him. You know, I apologized for the situation. He apologized back to me, and we kind of kept in touch. So fast forward 2 years later, I went to visit. I was in Naples. I was still living in Salzburg at the time, but I went back to Naples to visit this team I was coaching. He came to me. So the players, you know, they all showed up, and we threw the ball around together, and it was kind of cool to see how they developed over the past 2 years, you know, what they were doing in their lives. And this player showed up to the meeting, and my quarterback, and I really didn't expect it. And he came to me, and, you know, we talked, and I realized that he has matured and that he finally got it. And what I mean by it is he finally understood. And by the end of that meeting, he kind of just looked at me and he said, "Hey, coach, you know, I just want to tell you that thank you. And you were right." And he gave me a hug, and that was it. And I kind of got emotional about it, because that's what it's all about. You know, that's what, for me, it's all about. Maybe at the time, at that age, he didn't want to hear what I was saying, but, you know, whatever I taught him, it stuck in his mind through those years. And it kind of sat there, and he realized that, hey, he was trying to help me and try to, you know, help for the betterment of me. It wasn't because he didn't like me. And for him to finally get that and kind of turn his life around and focus on the things that, you know, I was trying to preach, it was just an amazing kind of realization for me.
I totally pick up what you're throwing down there, due to the fact that being a coach for 30 years, baseball and softball and a little bit of football, not as good as football as I am with baseball and softball, but I have this saying, I got to bring it up. It's actually from Yogi Berra. And I tell my players before I tell them, I go, you know, you may not understand it now. You may not understand it tomorrow. It may take you a few years to understand it. And it's, if you do what you always do, you'll always do what you've done. Make yourself better today and every day forward. So brought that up to a player probably now, let's just say 15 years ago. He came up to me and basically tackled me and goes, "Bleep, coach, I tell you what, I finally understood after I had my first child what you meant. And I totally get it now. And thank you." And literally when he tackled me, he drilled me and I wasn't ready for it. Gave me a big old hug. So it kind of, when you realize that you're making an impression with these young men or young women, I'll tell you what, it pulls at your heartstrings. It truly does.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can understand where I'm coming from with that.
Do you feel as a coach, teacher, all those things that sometimes you learn more from them?
100%.
Sorry, I threw myself right into there, but I just wanted to get that question in.
That's so true. And, you know, I believe that we adults can learn so much from youth and kids, because the way I think, especially kids, because kids are essentially what adults are afraid to be. You know, when a kid doesn't like something, he tells you it.
Right.
And, you know, when adults, we're taught that, hey, if you don't like something, maybe you don't want to offend this person. So kind of don't tell them. But a kid, that's essentially how we think. They're just, you know, kind of open about it.
Right.
And that's something that I learned so much from kids. And, you know, I also, you know, just learn how, you know, I kind of look back at my childhood and my young adult life, and I can see the mistakes that I made along the way. You know, what these kids are going through, what the players that I coach, what they're going through, and kind of see, well, you know, if I had the mindset of this guy, wow, I could have changed something in my life. And you see, you know, we have a saying in society, you know, it's kind of a stereotypical saying. People say, you know, our youth is it's not like it used to be. Our youth is, you know, they're messed up. But to be honest, that's not the case at all. I think we as a society, because the kids at the end are looking up to us. A child is a child. He can be molded, you know, he can be raised. But just to say that, you know, the youth is, you know, they're going down a bad path, I just think it's totally false, because there's so much that, you know, a child is a young person. They have their whole life in front of them, and what they look to society to mold them. And I believe that we need to do a better job. We can't just continue to, you know, kind of say, oh, well, the next generation, the younger generation. No, we have to put a stop to that. And we have to become better leaders and mentors, because they're looking up to us, and that's where they're going to get their development from.
Would you say that is the impact you would want perceived with SWALeadership?
That's definitely a part of it, for sure. For me, SWALeadership, I would say the main impact I want is to just be more accepting of people who are different than you, because I believe we've been taught as we grow up, you know, if a person doesn't believe the same thing as you, if they're not the same religion as you, if they're not the same political views, then they're your enemy. But what I've experienced is we can coexist in a world where people have their different beliefs, but in the end, it comes down to respecting those differences and being able to have a normal conversation with someone, just a normal conversation without turning it into an offensive situation. And for me, SWALeadership is a method. I'm not saying it's the only or the correct one, but for me, it really helped me understand that, hey, people are different than me. They were raised different than me. They believe different things than me. But at the end of the day, I can still have a conversation with that person and be their friend or work with them without, that getting in the way. And I believe if we could somehow implement that in our world, we'd be living in a much better situation than we currently are.
I agree.
But it's easier said than done.
The word leadership doesn't seem to encompass enough.
No.
Right? Like it's not enough.
No.
Right? Tell me, what do you think? Why is leadership not enough?
Yeah, because number one, just because someone's a leader, it doesn't mean that they're effective in their leadership. By effective leadership, I defined effective leadership as impact. What impact are you having on your followers? Not short term. What long term impact are you having on them? Because there are leaders in this world who have a position, and it's simply a title. Maybe they did well in school, or maybe they had the financial or means, or maybe they knew someone who knew someone that got them into this position. But just because they have, maybe it says on their desk, CEO or leader, it doesn't mean that they have the skills behind that.
Right.
And so for me, effective leadership has to be the new way we define leadership, because leadership standing by itself is just not enough. Like you just said, it's a vaguely defined definition. You look it up in the dictionary, you won't find a specific definition for it.
No.
And so I believe that people's focus in SWAL leadership and this concept, it focuses on the effectiveness behind the leadership, not just the title of it.
Yeah, man, absolutely amazing. Excuse me, dry throat.
No.
So what are your current plans right now with your book and everything? And is there another book on the horizon out there?
Yes. Well, my current plans now, I'm doing a bunch of things at the moment over here in Austria. I'm coaching youth football, which I love because it's something that, I feel like that it's part of my calling to, just kind of be a mentor for young people, especially young people who come from either single parent homes, foster homes, which we have a lot in our club. And so for me, I see that as my responsibility to, be a positive mentor for them, because I feel like every young person should have a chance, regardless of their situation, to have positive influencing adult mentors. And that's not always the case. So that's one thing I'm doing. I'm a personal trainer as well. Fitness is a huge part of my life. That's come from, my sporting background. Writing is something I'm passionate about. I have a blog. I wrote my first book. It will be released in the fall here.
All the access you can find right there under
down below, folks.
It's in the information. You're going to be able to find out how to get a hold of him, find the book and everything in the blogs. I just want to let everybody know that. So sorry about that,
guys. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yes, definitely have a second book on the horizon. Hopefully even more. Like I said, for me, I'm still going, and I believe that, everyone who's looking to, reach their full potential has to always and consistently be in a process of growth. And for me, there's no difference. I'm in a process of reshaping my identity from the football player that I was to the man and the new person I'm becoming. And I know for a fact that football, before I didn't know this, but football was kind of how I identified myself. Now I realize it's just simply the platform I was given to reach my potential.
I love that.
I do too.
Yeah.
And
there's many different platforms. He was able to use football. You like it in softball. And I'm going to even bring it about. We created this show, and this is our platform. Yeah. We call ourselves a local international show.
That's right.
And we're talking to you over in Europe. We've talked to people all over the world now. And believe it or not, I feel like I'm learning and becoming a better human because of it. And the different things and thank you for providing us as well as our viewers.
Yes. Sometimes I wonder if he's human or I'm human. But anyway, that's a different story.
So I just want to thank you for everything.
Zach,
You've been fantastic. I'm so glad that you came into the What Up family and brought a lot. And we're going to follow more about you, and we'll do a follow up with you in the future.
Yeah.
And see how everything's going and where you've taken everything to that. Good luck to your team.
Yes. Get them.
Thank you.
Anything else you got?
Thank you.
Hey, Zach, thank you. I had a great time. That was a fantastic interview. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much. If I could just say one more thing, if it's okay.
Yeah.
You guys like you are an example of what I'm talking about, because you just said it yourself. You guys coming together and forming this podcast, giving other people a chance to share their platform, and you learning about other people and also enhancing your own, personal foundation. For me, that's what it's all about. You're stepping out of your comfort zone, and you're making it happen. You're learning and you're helping other people, achieve their own platform. And I appreciate that.
We really appreciate that too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zach. Have a great, it's going to be bedtime for you soon, isn't it?
You could say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
What up? Thanks a lot.
Folks.
Appreciate it, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Have a good night.